Well, hello everyone. Welcome to our book study for this Lent here in 2021. It's been a process by which we have come to this point, and I think one of the great things that has come out of this last year that we've spent in COVID seclusion has been our use of video and our ability to do this. The way we're doing these lessons now is something like our confirmation students have been dealing with for all of this year, where they receive kind of an introduction through a video like this if they watch on their own, and then they dive in and have a discussion in small groups. I hope that you'll be able to take the study guide and these little videos together and make good use of them. So, by way of introduction, we want to talk about C.S. Lewis, who's the author of the book Mere Christianity, which is the subject of our Lenten book study. Lewis was born in Belfast in Northern Ireland in 1898, but spent most of his life in England. Served in World War I, where he was injured and then discharged. As we understand it, in that process, he worked through really leaving his faith behind and declared himself to be an atheist. But in the years to come after that, gradually moved himself back to a place where his faith became more and more and more important, and eventually became one of the great Christian apologists, that is, explainers of the last 100 years for us. And so it's with that background that we read Mere Christianity. He became an Oxford, I guess we call it instructor, not tenure track, not a full professor, but then gradually moved to that and eventually was a professor at Cambridge, where he wrote a lot of books, but his professorship was in medieval and Renaissance literature. So it really he wasn't a pastor, he wasn't a theologian, he was really a literary critic. That's who he was, an historian. And he came to understand a lot of Christianity by using the kinds of things that he saw in his literature. He's most famous, of course, for his own books that include the Narnia series. Many of you have read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is one of the 7 books in that series. But he also wrote a lot of other stuff, including textbooks on medieval and Renaissance literature. And then one of those really great little books that you see sometimes. This is one that he wrote, I want to say 1960 or 61, after the death of his wife that he'd only been married to for just the 4 years there. To most of us, of course, the Narnia books are the most famous, but to most people in Britain, especially in I call it the modern period, the 50s and the 60s, he was known as the guy who was on the radio during World War II. These radio broadcasts that he would get on and he would record to be sent out over the radio for all the people in the midst of the war, in the midst of the rockets and the draft and the battles and the injuries and all that was going on around them. He would spend some time talking about faith. Now, what we are reading is actually reprints or written versions of the radio broadcast that he gave during the war. Immediately in the 1940s, those were broken down into 3 books. And then in 1952, the 3 books were put together into one book, which is called Mere Christianity. We're going to focus mostly, we'll read the preface, but mostly we're going to focus on part 2 of the 4 parts in Mere Christianity, which is a part where he really explains the basics of Christianity, all of the things that hold us together as people of God, and not just as Lutherans, not just as people from Redeemer, but all Christians of all different backgrounds and denominations. So that's what we have in front of us. That's who C.S. Lewis is. That's his background. I hope that you enjoy reading through this, and I hope that you enjoy all of the things that go into the book study that will bring you closer in your faith and your walk, in your journey with God. God bless you all.